Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another edition of Living Simply and Fun. I'm your host, Rita, and there's Aaron.
Hi. I wanted to do another video to follow up on our first-person shooter review of the fact that we're really not having too much fun with Call of Duty. But Rita brought up something near the end of the video that made me want to do another video. The entire thing of these kids that go bonkers and crazy because they've played a first-person shooter. Yeah. First of all, Call of Duty is based on historical fiction as well as the Medal of Honor series. These are things that happen. Now, you can learn about these things in history class. I don't think, frankly, that reliving the historic events through a video game and learning more about history is going to cause a person to snap and go crazy. After all, we do realize that these are historic. However, the online modes might add a little bit more because, well, tempers flare and you're just going crazy shooting the other people and there's no history involved in that. So maybe, if anything, the multiplayer needs to go. And I don't mean multiplayer campaign, but like, yeah, I still think it'd be great to do online and have 6 people in your squad and go and relive the events online together. That'd be great. But these capture the flags and
Frag Fests,
paintball, and you know all the different options they come up with, I think those are the ones that more likely would cause any trouble. When it comes to games like Halo and Time Splitters, the weapons involved essentially are false weapons or weapons that people wouldn't use, like the Needler. That's not a real gun. Yes, there are real guns in Halo because the Marines in there carry American-style weapons.
Yeah, but they're not really. They're futuristic handguns. I mean, look at, for example,
terribly. They have their M1 Garand rip-off and their shotgun rip-off.
Yes, but they're more different.
And they aren't like blue and purple and shoot plasma.
I'm trying to say the handguns are futuristic. The battle assault rifles are futuristic. But I will tell you one thing that is interesting. Is the highest caliber of shotgun we have is 10 gauge, and in Halo there's an 8 gauge. So
yes, and then talking about games that could cause problems, Grand Theft Auto.
Yes, they banned it in Thailand.
I love this series. I honestly do. The reason for it is essentially a free roam sandboxer, and I love games like that. However, I found with Grand Theft Auto 4. Even though I kind of grown to like the character, Nico, at the same time, the entire game is vulgar. It is foul-mouthed. It is disrespectful. It's not as bad as CJ was, in the fact that CJ seemed to be more realistic than Nico is. You can tell very clearly in Grand Theft Auto 4 that you're in a different time frame because Russians haven't taken over any major city in America to the point that the clothing stores have Russian names and stuff. And you'd more likely see that in Chinese areas. When you knock that off,
I'm letting you talk.
So, my thoughts on it is that although the Grand Theft Auto series is good, I really think that it's for mature people. Now, here's where the government gets a mistake. They think that everybody who plays it is immature and impressionable. And what needs to be realized is that the impressionable ones are under 18 or have some severe mental disability already. And so what I think really is the solution to the whole problem is not to attack the video games, but to make sure that the government has proper care so that anybody with a mental problem gets taken care of. And I don't care if they're homeless or if they make $50 million a year. They got a mental problem, then the insurance company should be taking care of mental instead of saying, we don't cover it. I mean, Medicare and Medicaid, neither one truly cover mental. There's a sliding scale that ends up covering almost 100% for people on Medicaid, but Medicaid's been done away with due to Obamacare. Around here, it's now called Apple Washington.
AppleCare.
Or AppleCare. And AppleCare no longer covers mental. And the places that do take Medicaid, or used to, are now only going to be taking people with AppleCare. Unfortunately, AppleCare only covers 70%, so you're still stuck paying part of your mental health bill. And when it comes to prescription D coverage, taking care of medications, or even other places that help with medication aid, they do not cover psych meds. Usually psych meds are considered tier 4 and end up almost full price, or 80%. Or 75%.
So far, tier 4 is on my plan. It's 44% and 42%.
I'm supposed to actually be on one called Seroquel, which is considered a psych med. It does help one of my minor problems, and I would end up having to pay $475 out of pocket. I end up bringing in only $792. My rent's almost $200. So if I took care of those two alone, I'd be broke with no food. Well, I'd have like $100 left. So how am I going to cover my mental health? But mental health and prescriptions are all up front, so it doesn't work towards a spend down either. And now I found that prescriptions no longer work towards a spend down to get the extra coverage either. So Obamacare has really messed things up for people with mental disabilities. And here our government's talking about how these shooting sprees at schools need to stop. Well, you know what? Parents can't afford to take their kids to mental health care. But if there was something out there to make sure that these frickin' jack-offs who are in the mental health profession didn't charge frickin' $300-400 for a 1 hour session, or $200 for poor people for a 1 hour session, maybe people could afford to get mental health care. And I know a lot of people have mental health problems and need to have mental health care. So maybe instead of the government focusing on banning guns and banning video games and banning this and banning
cookies,
that,
because of overweight fat people, no offense to
what
you.
they need to do is make sure that the health care is there. In Canada, they make sure. In Europe, they make sure.
Australia,
in Russia,
they do.
In Australia, they
New
make
Zealand.
sure. The United States is one of few countries in the entire world who does not
It's the
have
only
anything to
country.
take care of mental health care.
Even the Mexicans in Mexico have health care.
Speaking of which, though, if a Mexican comes up here and does not have proper paperwork, they do get mental health care. They just go in and say, I don't have any health insurance and I don't have any money and I need help. They get their help. But we try that and they say, well, you're on Social Security, blah, blah, blah. You get Medicare, you don't qualify. Yeah, real great. I used to get mental health care, but then Washington stopped their aid to people who had Medicare. So when Washington stopped their aid to Medicare patients to get reduced rates from the insurance and helping give grants to the places that did it, I got cut off, and I haven't been medicated in 4 years. Luckily, it's something that I've been able to control on my own without too much hassle, and I probably don't need the medications. But, you know, in some ways I feel safer actually taking them because I do get scared.
I do want to say something about this right now since he's been going for so long. Here's my opinion. I saw a video today about medications. No offense to Ian Mathers, who did Foamy. But Foamy did a rant today on medicines. He said 70% of people in this country are medicated for false disorders.
Yes.
Now, Aaron, he might need his meds, but after 4 years, people would say, well, you've been non-medicated for 4 years. Who cares? You don't need it. Well, to some people, yes. To some people, no.
Well,
it just depends on the person.
To back that up, ADHD, the person who coined ADHD as a term, the medical doctor, even on his deathbed said that it was a false diagnosis, that it was told that he needed to create a diagnosis so that they could find a way to sell a medication, which happens to be Ritalin. And now almost every single child is given the classification of ADD or ADHD, and I hear adults even say, I can't focus on this too long, I must be ADD. I'm sorry, no, you don't have the need for that. Other ones are certain mood medications like Prozac. Prozac's actually used more as a drug to get high. Yeah, it's supposed to be an antidepressant of some sort.
I'm sorry
but they
to
kind
say,
of give it out like candy to just about
that
anyone.
the Mormons eat is Prozac?
Utah has the highest rate of Prozac users in the United States. And yes, it's the Mormon state.
Yep.
But that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Another one that too many people get classified as is autistic. Today, any kid that doesn't seem to want to behave proper and wants to yell and scream constantly and not learn anything, they get the automatic term of autistic. You know, I think of autism, and I think of kids that sit there nearly comatose. Not sitting there screaming and crying and yelling about everything because nobody's paying attention to them. It's a matter of the fact that in today's society, families don't have time for their kids anymore. They stick them in front of a TV and they go about their daily business. Or they stick them in front of a video game and go about their daily business. And usually adult-orientated video games, like Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead Redemption, which has nudity in it and vulgar language. I'm sorry, kids don't need to be subjected to that at 5. We don't need to be giving our kids iPads or iPods or anything like that. We need to be giving them an education, and we need to be there for them. And unfortunately, most of these kids that are classified as autistic end up with all sorts of medications and stuff like that to help their autism, when the fact of the matter is all they want is a little attention. And if the family would actually give them a little attention and not pamper them, you know, because kids used to be punished that were treated like that. It was called being a brat. And I was. And I know a lot of other kids that were brats. They grew up just fine. They were never given the classification of autistic. However, today they would be. And these kids understand what the doctors are talking about. And so these kids act out knowing that it's just their classification. So we're teaching them to be mental nut jobs. So the fact of the matter is, if the government wants to get the priorities straight, they don't need to look at video games. They need to look at mental health care. They need to look at ways to make it so that parents can be better parents. Maybe by reducing the taxes on low-income families, or making it so that families don't have to have 2 people working in the family, so that one can be around the kids all the time.
Excuse me for saying this before we run out of time, but it's all the women's fault for wanting to have equal rights, and because of that, they started getting jobs, and then the whole damn American society went down the toilet.
And to add to that, the women want equal rights and they want to work, but they also want a man who's going to provide for them so that their money's theirs and part of their man's money is theirs, instead of looking and saying, you know what, maybe a house husband's a good idea. There are disabled guys out there who can't work, and guess what? They can be around the kids all day long. They can take care of them while you go work if that's what you want. Guess what? You'll be where the men were 60 years ago, when men did all the working and women did all the cleaning and chores and taking care of the kids. Wouldn't that be the ultimate reversal of roles, to have a house husband? But no, because the house husband doesn't have a car. He doesn't have a job. He doesn't have a six-pack necessarily. He's too busy taking care of the kids and stuff and not working, and therefore he's not providing. So it all comes back to the fact that what ends up happening is the women end up causing it, really, so that the families don't get taken care of, partially because of their own greed. But I don't want to say that, because I think women should be able to work. And so I have respect for women who do work. It's just the women need to stop necessarily thinking that a successful guy who works and makes $100,000 a year, but he's work 18 hours a day, is the ideal husband, because the ideal husband can actually help with the family issues.
I was going to say, before we sign off, is there's an old joke that Aaron told me recently about women. A guy basically starts up, there's a guy, and it said something about a store. And the store was for men, and it says, find the perfect wife. First one was cleaning, cooking on the first floor. The second floor was cleaning, cooking, and beer.
Yes. And the men ended up stopping like the first or second floor and saying, this is the perfect woman for me, where the 6th floor store, the women kept going up, and each time it seemed like it was better and better till they got to the top floor, and then they were told
the 32th million person that's declined on the 6th
yeah, they
floor.
get to the 6th floor, there is no guy, and they're SOL. And it's like, well, I keep wanting better and better and better and better and better. Anyways,
please add and subscribe if you like. Please post comments in the box if you like. And please add us as a friend if you like. Thank you, and have a nice day.